Hi, I'm Peter Tragos, host of the Lawyer You Know podcast and YouTube channel. The saying goes, everyone hates lawyers until you need one. Well, I'm here when you need one to answer your questions and give you insight that you didn't know you needed. Along with my partners, Pete Sardis, the professor, who has a finance and business background, and George Tragos, my dad, and the consigliere, a criminal defense giant, we can answer any questions you have. Welcome everyone to the Lawyer You Know. It's Peter Tragos here today, and we're going to talk about the Highland Park shooting. We're going to compare and look at some parallels to the Oxford school shooting to see, is anyone else culpable of this tragedy that occurred? And what potentially could have been done to prevent this? We're also going to talk about what potential laws could be in place that are not political, not stepping on the Second Amendment, not getting us into some political discussion, but what laws I think we can all agree with that would help prevent things like this from happening in the future. In this day and age, when we have social media and we have YouTube and we have things that are publicly available to everyone, what should be done to use those tools to see how we can better protect society and deal with mental illness in the world and people that are having these kind of problems? What is it possible that we can do to potentially protect and prevent things from happening like this in the future? So we've been following Ethan Crumbley and his parents' cases in connection with the Oxford school shooting, and how it's a very interesting legal argument to find culpability on the parents who have been charged with involuntary manslaughter for their action or inaction with their son, who is a minor, Ethan Crumbley. Well, now we look over to the Highland Park shooter. So when we look back into the history a little bit about the Highland Park shooter, we see that in 2019, it was reported that he attempted suicide. And later that year, it was reported that he threatened to kill everyone. Now, what that means, we're not really sure, but we know that law enforcement came out, did some sort of investigation, removed 16 knives, a dagger, and a sword from the house, but did not arrest Mr. Crimo, I'm not sure how to say his name, but they did not arrest him because they did not find enough for probable cause to arrest. Now, threatening to kill everyone while you do have weapons in the house is absolutely a crime. So that means they either didn't find the threat credible or they didn't find the reporting credible, and therefore they didn't make an arrest. Maybe that had to do with the age of Mr. Crimo at the time, who would have been under 20 years old. He would have been a teenager. Maybe it had to do with his family's long ties in the community. Will we find out what his parents or other family members may have done to persuade law enforcement not to arrest him at that time? Because if he was arrested and charged with a felony, that would mean he couldn't legally purchase any firearms, which we find out after these weapons were removed from his house. At some point, he purchased 5 firearms, including 2 AR-style rifles, some pistols, and possibly a shotgun. So after that event where he made those threats and weapons were removed from his house by law enforcement, no charges, no restrictions on what weapons he could purchase, so he purchases allegedly 5 weapons. And they believe that some of those weapons, or at least one of those weapons, was used in the shooting. But in addition to that, if we look at some of the reports that have come out now that people have seen, and some of the factors that should be disturbing to us, is he fancied himself a rapper. He made music videos, and some of the content centered around mass shootings. There were cartoons of people being shot and blood. Very disturbing things that was publicly available to everyone, including his family members, including his parents. There were reports that he was kind of a loner, quiet kid. But if you listen to some of his friends, they say he was just because he was nerdy. He wasn't sinister. Things changed a little bit when a girlfriend dumped him. He seemed a little bit more depressed, a little more reclusive. Most people just thought he was a normal kid. But do normal kids make those kind of music videos and post that kind of stuff on the internet? His uncle, who's been interviewed by some media outlets who I guess lived in the house with them, said he saw no signs of trouble, and if he would have seen signs of trouble, he absolutely would have done something. But then there are some reports from school and after school programs when he was in high school, how he and his brother were always left behind or not picked up on time, and his parents were always late, his parents were difficult to get a hold of. And if you recognize some of these factors, it's because it does sound a little bit like Ethan Crumbley and his relationship with his parents. Now, there are some major differences. Mr. Crimo was an adult. Mr. Crumbley was a minor. Mr. Crumbley's disturbing behavior was brought to his parents' attention. Mr. Crimo, we don't know that yet. We know it was publicly available, but we don't know if they ever saw it. We don't know if they ever knew about it. What duty does a parent have, right, when your kid becomes an adult? I would argue none. Others would argue if they live in your house, there's still some kind of duty, still some kind of responsibility. Who helped Mr. Crimo get these guns? There are some questions that are unanswered to see if there really will be anybody else culpable for these shootings like we're seeing in the Crumbley case, but I think it's at least something legally to monitor. And then something I talked about at the beginning, what laws could be put in place to help something like this? I'm not talking about political things. I'm not talking about gun control. I'm not talking about any of that. What I'm talking about is when you make threats of violence. If there's enough probable cause, there's a law in place to restrict the kind of weapons you can have access to. But what about these kind of social media posts and music videos on YouTube? That's a discussion on free speech versus inciting violence and things we should be worried about and protect against as a society. Do we want to illegalize videos like that, cartoons like that, expressions like that? Do we want people to talk about mass shootings in that sort of way? Do we want them to glamorize it or cartoonize it? Those are some questions I think we need to talk about as well. Everybody wants to talk about gun control. Everyone wants to talk about, is it the gun or is it the person? Is it the owner? And that's fine. You can have those debates. I'm not here to have those debates. What I'm here to do is, what legally can we do when we know something is disturbing and we know something is wrong, and similar action would be criminalized? How far do we want to take it? How far is too far? How far is not far enough? And we're weighing the sanctity of the lives taken in this Highland Park shooting with freedom of expression. And this is the balancing act lawmakers have to make. And most of them are lawyers. But a lot of it gets done from the public and what you think. And that's why I'm asking you these questions. Where do you think we should draw the line? What should be illegal as a type of social media post, if anything? And if it is illegal, what should the punishment be? Because we're a society that writes our own laws and writes our own rules. So maybe it could be illegal to post certain things, but the only punishment is you're not allowed to have weapons. Maybe we correlate the punishment with the actual crime. How do we do that? What would that look like? I just want to kind of start a discussion here to see what you all think about this case, what you all think about these red flags that were there. Because we don't want to demonize and criminalize mental health, right? We want to help people get help. So I don't want, just because somebody has suicidal thoughts or just because somebody has a mental breakdown, it doesn't mean that they're a criminal. It doesn't mean that we have to restrict them. It doesn't mean that we have to not allow them to live their life. So how can we balance that? And really, that's just a discussion I wanted to have with you all while we keep an eye on this case to see if there are more or less similarities to the Crumbley case and if anybody else is wrapped in to this criminal culpability with the actual shooter in this case. And let me know if, based off what you've seen, if you think that there's anybody else that could potentially be culpable. Leave your comments below and like the video on the way out. Subscribe to our channel if you want more like this, and let me know if this is a topic you're interested in that you would like us to continue to follow. Thanks for being with us here today. Thanks for watching this episode of The Lawyer You Know. If you like this content, please share it with your friends. Make sure you subscribe to our page and like our videos. If you want some interaction, get in the comments and we'll be sure to get back to you. If you want to know any more information about our firm or this page, you can find out in the description or visit tragoslaw.com. We post multiple times throughout the week, so make sure you hit that bell so you can get the notification and not miss out on the next episode.